Hi, my name is Anea Dixon, and I am part of the Performance Studies class. I'm going to be answering the Chapter 1 Probe 1 questions today. So, we are going to be explaining today my day in performance terms before and after the COVID 19 pandemic. And more specifically, I'm going to be focusing on how I communicate through actions, or ACT. So the question we're answering, or the scenario that we're supposed to be coming up with, is to think of a time that you felt a need to adjust your clothes to appropriately uh, costume myself. And we have to describe the script that I performed. So when I talk about how I'm going to be describing how I communicate through ACT, I'm going to give an example of how during the pandemic, with the masks, it was very hard to communicate to people. First and foremost, before the pandemic, we were able to see each other's faces. We could speak openly, we could speak freely. We had to show an authentic, happy face to the people we saw in grocery stores, inside of restaurants, anywhere, because people could see us. And as we see, according to the second edition interpretation of aesthetic text, performance studies textbook, if you read page 3 of paragraph 2, it states that human communication is an act of performance. Anytime we talk to somebody, it's always an act we're putting on, whether it's authentic or inauthentic. We do it as a matter of course, because it's simply how we respond to any activity that we do. Going on, page 5, paragraph 4 of the same book states that communication is scripted by cultural expectation. And what that means for us is that even though some cultures may not see it as a necessity to be polite and friendly and outgoing to the people we see in restaurants or grocery stores, Americans are very social. So, as a matter of course, I felt it necessary whenever I'd enter a public establishment to greet the person at the door. And if someone looks me in the eyes and makes eye contact, I smile at them politely. I show my pearly whites. I open my eyes to show that I'm actually engaged and actively looking at them. And we have warm, open body language with a person. This was before the pandemic. Switching over to after the pandemic, I'd make sure as soon as I left the car, people were afraid of getting sick, and it was your social responsibility to put a mask on your face to make sure that other people felt comfortable around you. Whereas before the pandemic, to make people feel happy and welcomed and comfortable, you would show that you were obliging to their presence. After the pandemic, not so much. To show and make people feel comfortable, to show that you respected their boundaries, you put your mask on, you keep your distance. And that was a very big shift. When it talks about our actions, my act changed from being warm and friendly to being somewhat kept away, keeping a conservative distance, and making sure that my clothes, they didn't matter as much because I had my mask on. People couldn't see my makeup. I didn't put on my costume, so to speak, of covering my face with my eyeliner, my lip gloss, because people couldn't see that. Most of the time, we might even have gloves on. I didn't do my nails because people couldn't see what my nail beds looked like. I could care less about my external presentation because, again, it didn't matter during the pandemic. Secondly, when it comes to my act, the act that I put on was no longer warm and friendly. I didn't emote nearly as much. Usually, people would be able to tell my general mood by looking at my facial expressions, my lips, and my mouth. But with a mask on, you can't do that. So what did I do instead? Well, I found myself emoting much more, and if you see I talk a lot with my hands, that was largely something I learned to do during the pandemic, because when people can't read your facial expressions nearly as well, you have to invoke a sense of emotion some way else. And so rather than just smiling whenever I'd walk into a storefront or a restaurant, I would raise my voice, I would use more vocal intonation so people could express how I was feeling at any general time, and I would use more hand motions to try to invoke a sense of emotion or passion with what I was saying. So, secondly, we are asked, to what extent does thinking of yourself as an actor engage in an ongoing performance to help me describe my day? If I look at myself as an actor, I realize that I'm just trying to fulfill some sort of need. I have an end goal, and I have a goal to meet with my actions. So any behavior that I do is meant to fulfill that desire to communicate and complete the action. If I'm an actor, I just want to get from point A to point B as successfully as possible using whatever communicative methods I need to. And lastly, to what extent does the general performance terminology used in this example that I gave allow me to understand my and others' behaviors? When we think of each other as actors, we see that at the end of the day, however we perform, so to speak, and we convey our emotions to other people, is how other people are going to in turn, or they're supposed to, react to us. If I'm warm and friendly with my actions, my act is supposed to be inviting to others, so hopefully they'll be the same to me. And if I'm standoffish, very similarly, I'm giving other people the connotation through my act I don't want to be touched, messed with, interacted with. So that's my description of how my life has varied with my actions in performance terms before and after the pandemic. Thank you.